What are the signs of financial trouble? It seems like such an easy question to ask and something that you would absolutely know the answer to, but the truth is, it sneaks up on a lot of Canadians. That's our topic today on the Debt Matters podcast, where we help Canadians find solutions to their debt with licensed insolvency trustees from across Canada. I'm Wayne Kay, and in today's show, we're going to talk about what are those signs that you're in serious financial trouble, why you need to notice this sooner rather than later, what you need to do if you're in a bad situation, what if you can't fix it yourself, and the big one is, who do you trust to fix it with you? Because if you pick the wrong person, this could end up costing you a lot more in the long run. My guest today, Derek Chase from Chase & Associates, licensed insolvency trustees serving Vancouver Island, Sunshine Coast of BC, and the North Coast as well. Derek, thanks for being on the show.
Well, hi, Wayne. It's a pleasure to be here today. I can't wait to go over the topic we've got today.
Well, this is a topic that's affecting a lot of Canadians these days. I'm wondering if it's worse now or what it's going to look like in the next little while.
Yeah, it's hard to say. These things ebb and flow, and circumstances change month to month, year to year, and sometimes it just takes a little bit, like the camel that hurts the camel's, or the straw that hurts the camel's back. Yeah. It can take one little thing, and all of a sudden, it's trouble.
That's true. We go along, everything is perfectly fine, and this one little thing can happen, and it can throw you right off. You've been going along, building your financial plan. One little thing, and you're the one who's obviously dealing with so many people that are having financial troubles. Do you see, like, one thing can really set you off, but if you have two or three things happen, well, that can really send things sideways, can't they?
For sure. I mean, there's a multiple amount of different signs that can indicate that you're in financial trouble, and whether those become serious financial trouble, or it's just, you should check this out, or what's the seriousness of the signs can differ. But the worst thing you could do would be to ignore signs of financial trouble. But it is important to recognize them, so maybe we could go over a few of them.
And we will. And a very important point there is that I actually do know people that have said, I knew what that envelope was with that little window in it, and I just didn't open it. I've left it for a long time. So that's part of that ignore thing. So let's talk about some of the signs. What are some of the signs that we should look for?
I think you could classify yourself in serious financial trouble. The most obvious one would be that you're getting phone calls about your debts. That, to me, is a real red flag that you need to do something, because in order to have someone phone you, you've missed some payments. It's they're not just going to phone you to chat. They're phoning you to say, why haven't you paid? You're X amount of dollars behind, and you need to make a payment. And so that to me is probably the biggest sign. But I mean, there can be other signs, such that you have no money left at the end of the month. Your overdraft is just getting a little bit bigger every month. That would be a more subtle sign that you're just slowly building debt by running a very small deficit every month, where you have more cash going out than coming in. And eventually, even if that's going to be $100 deficit every month, eventually that's going to build up to be too much debt to manage. So having your debt just slowly grow, or having your debts just stay the same is also an indicator that there's a problem here, because having your debt balances just stay the same or grow, it's that image of a hamster on a treadwheel, like you're running like crazy and you're not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. So that's an indicator that you need to look closer at the numbers, and you could be on the pathway to some serious financial trouble if that's the case. But I mean, there are other signs. Obviously, if you're getting calls or mail from collection agencies instead of the original creditor, often creditors will will sell or transfer the debt to a collection agency if you haven't paid. And then, this collection agency is basically starts to ramp up the pressure by phoning more often or threatening, sending letters, threatening legal action. Another example I could think of, or another sign would be, and a serious sign would be if your pay is getting garnished. I mean, sometimes we chat with people and they say, "Oh, my pay's been getting garnished for 6 months," and I'm like, "Wow, you took 6 months to come and talk to us." I mean, if your pay is getting garnished, I would talk to someone right away because
Yeah.
you don't have to live with that.
Wow. And what do they say then? They just, well, I had no idea. I thought that's how it worked.
Yeah, they're just unaware of what they could do to change things, or yeah, maybe just they felt that was something they couldn't change. It's hard to say, but certainly if your wages are getting garnished, then it's a sign that you're in serious financial trouble, and often that leads to a setting where you just can't pay your other bills, like if you can't pay your rent, or you can't, whereas if the garnish was gone, then life is much easier. So another sign I could think of is if you actually are being taken to court by a creditor, which isn't hugely common, but it is out there. There's a lot more threats to be taken to court from creditors than the actual follow through. But nobody likes to hear those words or see the letter that says we're taking you to court, or we might take you to court. So, I mean, there's a number of signs that indicate that you are in financial trouble or difficulty, and it's important to recognize them. And it's also important to understand that you've got ways to deal with it, and it's good to do some research to figure out those ways.
As I'm going through the list, every single one of these obviously adding a lot of stress into people's lives as well, if you're having to deal with any of these signs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, life can be hard enough without having to deal with your phone ringing all the time, with people sort of threatening you, or for some reason they start to phone your family or neighbors or whatnot, and it's just these things just build and build and build and build, and eventually something has to change or break. So it's yeah.
I got a question about this. So typically, does the whoever is holding the original debt, the person you owe money to, do they actually start trying to find a resolution with you before they pass it on to the collection agencies?
For sure, yes, I think they do. They'll make the initial call or send out the initial correspondence, but if it's a setting where they can't reach a person by phone, or there's just no response, then there is a market where they could either transfer or sell the debt to a collector, and then the collector tries to recover on it. But they won't immediately go there. There'll be an initial effort to try and have someone pay them directly, as opposed to via a collection agency.
Right. So this would be kind of part of the you've now seen some of these signs. Maybe somebody's listening and they're going, "Okay, yeah, I've had that. Yep, I've had that. I've had that." The earlier that you can acknowledge there's a problem, the better. So let's talk about that. Obviously, it's that it doesn't continue to grow, and I would assuming interest and all these things would compound much faster the longer you leave it.
Yes, it would grow much faster and higher the longer you leave it. And I think there's just more options available to you the sooner that you can recognize that your finances are in trouble. Because if you leave it and put your head in the sand and pretend you're an ostrich and never file your taxes or never open the envelopes or whatever the delay is, it's just making the problem bigger, and it's possibly eliminating a couple different options that you could do to address it. So, and who wants to live with all that stress, right?
Yeah.
It's just impacting your sleep, and it's impacting your relationships. And so getting issues out into the open and talking about them and dealing with them, I think, is just healthy in any setting. And for your finances, it's especially so. And, I can think of a whole bunch of examples where we've had the opportunity to talk with people and go over their finances, and then they often will say, I wish I'd have started this a year ago. And they've been living with all that stress for a year, all that uncertainty for a year. And if they'd have started it a year ago, they might be done by now. Right? It's remarkable, but so thankfully those particular folks, they did get a solution, and they're off on a better pathway now.
Right. And so that's their advice. That's where you hear from. I would imagine the stress relief would be almost instantaneous once they come see you, because once you identify that, okay, we obviously do have the problem, we've reached out, oh my gosh, there is an actual solution, and it's not going to be horribly awful and super hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think you expect it to be much worse than it is. As you say, maybe they could be done within a year. So let's talk about those next steps. So they know, okay, obviously all these signs they're actually experiencing, and now they want to take action. So what is the next step for them?
Well, I think anytime you conclude that, or you recognize that your finances are in a bad spot, the first thing to do is just put pen to paper and get some facts down. You really need to do an inventory of, what are my assets? What are my debts? What's my income? What are my monthly expenses? You need to take a hard look at that, because, sometimes it could be as simple as looking at things and saying, oh, well, I've got this beautiful motorcycle I don't ride every day. I could sell that and pay off these payday loans, and then I'd be in a way better spot. So sometimes it's just a matter of selling assets that aren't critical to your day to day. If you had like a surplus asset,
right.
Other instances when people have really discovered what their expenses are, and they see expenses that are not necessary. When push comes to shove, do you really need to have 10 subscriptions or 3 fancy coffees a day, or things that you can easily slash out of a budget and start having a surplus every month, or a positive month where you have more revenue than expenses. And then you can start making some extra payments on your debt and really make progress that way. And so I think that's the first step, is you need to know what you're dealing with, and writing it down is doing that. And sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes if that doesn't work, where you can't just make those sort of, I would call, simple adjustments, then you need to talk to somebody else.
Right. And what's also amazing to me is, and it makes it difficult, is sometimes going through your credit card statements. There's a lot of people who are paying credit card bills without really going through all the items there. And there's stuff that they have been paying for that they haven't been using for a long time. This is now a big problem, is what I've heard from, I don't know, so I saw some survey and stats on it that it's like, oh, really? I've been paying that for 10 months and I haven't used it.
It's a good point. It's good to understand where your money's going, and it's sometimes you sign up for something through your credit card and you kind of forget about it and you're just never using it. So, I mean, shutting down your Amazon Prime or your some other type of charge is worthwhile. Like, you don't have to pay it every month.
Now, all of a sudden, they've gone through it. They figured out, okay, I have made some adjustments, but I still need some help. This is the really important part, is who do you trust when it comes to these finances? Because you said this one phrase just a little bit ago, payday loans. People see these and think that that's an option, and it is absolutely not an option. It is absolutely the worst thing you can do, is going into those places, because they will charge you. You have no idea how horrific it is. You obviously know, Derek. So how do you go about making the choice of where do I go next? How do I get help?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And it's, I think it comes down to, you're not in this sort of position every day, and you're under all this stress, and you just sort of potentially take the first thing that comes in front of your face to try and solve it. And that can be just as dangerous as the problem itself. I think it's never a bad idea to go to your bank or credit union, have a discussion about whether they would give you a consolidation loan. You might not qualify for that, but a bank or credit union's not going to hurt you in the sense of, they're not going to charge you a big fee just to talk, or they're not going to put you into a super high interest rate setting. So, going to a lender that's not a bank, you're running the risk that the interest rate that you're charged is going to be over the moon. And that really doesn't help anything. Mm-hmm. So who can you trust to help? I think you can trust your financial institution to a point, but even if you did qualify for what we would call a normal bank consolidation loan, you still have to be mindful about, what is the monthly payment going to be? What is the interest rate that I'm being charged? And how does it look for my upcoming months? Like, what does my cash flow look? Will I be able to afford this payment? And I think when people do ask those questions, they first of all, they might not be able to qualify for a consolidation loan because they don't have the collateral or the cosigner or the monthly cash flow. But yeah, even if you qualify, you still want to gauge whether it's going to provide you any relief. So then if the answer is, I can't qualify, or the payment's too high, who can you trust? I mean, we have to promote the licensed insolvency trustee community right across Canada because, the vast majority, if not all of us, will take a free initial consultation. We'll give you some advice. It's important to know that there are federal options that can help you reset your finances, and there's no need to pay somebody beforehand to talk to a trustee. Just phone up a licensed insolvency trustee in your area and say you'd like a half an hour, and then you'll have the proper information to make a solid decision for yourself and your family. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be my best advice as to how to go about, who can I trust for help? If your situation is more complex, you probably have a lawyer that you can chat with. That's never a bad thing to talk to a lawyer. A lawyer is going to look out for your interest. But if that's beyond your budget, or if your situation is not so complex, certainly talking to LIT is a good option.
And as you mentioned, licensed insolvency trustees they're right across the country, and it is actually all federally regulated. So this is something that you're under scrutiny at all times from the government, making sure everything is, they know that people are going to get into financial trouble, and they know that there's got to be a way to actually help people get ahead, get out of that debt, and restart their lives over. And it's a really great program. So absolutely. And you guys do the free consultation as well. And sometimes just to find out what the options are, that's sometimes enough that they can kind of go on their way and see how they do.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, whether it's suggesting that they go talk to a mortgage broker about redoing their mortgage, or whether it's selling off an asset they don't need, or making changes to budgets. Yeah. I mean, there's ways, right? There's ways to deal with stuff on your own. And then if the situation is gone beyond that, where there's just too much debt, then, a consumer proposal has been a fantastic option for lots of people, which takes the shape of a consolidation loan, but it's designed to have a monthly payment that fits your budget and provides you with relief immediately.
Yeah, and we've done lots of interviews on this, so we're going to be doing more podcasts on options, what the debt terms all mean, how they work in the future, and they're up on the website as well. Any final words of advice you need to pass along to us, Derek?
I think it's good to be aware of these signs of financial trouble, and if you notice them in your life, if you notice any of those red flags, then take action sooner than later.
I appreciate it. Great advice. Thank you very much, Derek.
My pleasure.
My guest today, Derek Chase. You can learn more or schedule that free consultation with Chase & Associates Licensed Insolvency Trustee through the website bankruptcytrustybc.ca. That's bankruptcytrustybc.ca. That's it for today's Debt Matters podcast. Now make sure you subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts from. And of course, for more information, you can always check out debtmatters.ca. Thanks for listening.